Welcome back. Well, if we can turn now to taxes. Budgets are normally about taxes. Of course, this is not a budget. This is just a vote on account. But even so, the government had made a number of promises in the previous budgets, not just the last budget. Two major things, Mr. Wadhwa, were on the GST as well as the DTC, the direct tax code, and the goods and service tax. Nothing has been done on either front. How hopeful are you? Of course, this vote on account can't see anything, but will he at least indicate some kind of a roadmap about when he thinks it will be done and what really held him back all these years?
Last, or expectedly the last statement that the finance minister is going to be making before the parliament and before the larger audience, which is the public of India. I think he is going to put emphasis on the fact that he and his government did everything possible to roll out GST and DTC, and that as a result of lack of cooperation or adequate progress in states that are ruled by opposition parties. He was frustrated, and therefore in some ways he will want to take credit for work that has been done up to this far, and also in some ways kind of delegate lack of success to lack of cooperation on the other side. Given that this is a vote of account, honestly he can't do anything more than just make these statements any which way. My own belief is that where both of these regulations stay, it's unlikely that even the new government will be able to introduce them in Parliament during the 2014 budget. So quite likely that we will see a deferment of both these legislations, and the earliest that they will probably be announced would be 2015 budget.
Let's get Mukesh Bhutani as well. Mukesh, would you agree with Ashok Wadhwa there? The markets would definitely welcome a streamlined rollout of the much talked about GST. Do you think the vote on account presents a good opportunity for the finance minister to revive confidence on this front?
Well, I don't think that the rollout of GST is something that the present government is opposed to. As a matter of fact, the present government has been pushing for rollout of GST, but the rollout of GST is now contingent upon constitutional amendments. So what the government is trying to do in the last 2 to 3 years is keeps on reaffirming its faith to roll out the GST. I don't think I expect anything beyond the reaffirmation of faith, because constitutional amendment is something that cannot be carried out under the present scenario.
Mr. Wadhwa, you talked about all the difficulties and how the lack of cooperation from the opposition made it very difficult for the finance minister to really move on GST. But that same argument really doesn't hold for the direct tax code. That is something that the finance minister could well have done. So what really was holding him back? Will it really sell if he makes that argument?
You know, actually, you're right. I mean, DTC should have been legislated by now. Work on DTC began, towards the early part of UPA's second term, and the fact that it has not been implemented until they finish their whole period is truly disappointing. It's truly disappointing. They could have done this. I think what happened was that the limited period in between, when we had Mr. Mukherjee as the finance minister, some provisions of DTC were kind of preponed, and there was an effort to legislate issues like GAR ahead of implementation of DTC itself. So in a sense, DTC got broken into two parts: selectively pieces of legislation that were introduced, and then of course the rest of the DTC was deferred. And given the controversy that some of those legislative changes did, I think the whole momentum was lost. And through that period, and then the change to Mr. Chidambaram again, by the time Mr. Chidambaram came back to power and started putting this together, he first had to settle and address issues that had become so controversial, Vodafone and GAR being the two critical issues. And I guess not only was time lost, but momentum was lost. So we stand here at the end of the 5-year period with serious disappointment on inability of this government to have been able to implement DTC.
Just going to mark the Nifty for a second, because the Nifty now seems to be reversing. So here's the trend. Ahead of vote on account, markets are weak. Markets are not strong, which means the event anticipation, at least from a market perspective, is not large. Intraday graph on your screen, things are reversing, with the exception of some odd jewelry stocks. Honestly, there is no price action in any of the economy related sectors. Mukesh, jump in on indirect taxes. Do you think the finance minister could do some big tinkering there?
I don't know. I mean, it could be crystal ball gazing, but to your question, can indirect tax rates be cut as a part of the vote on account exercise? The answer is yes. There is a possibility that he may want to cut it more as a part of the exercise in order to address the issue on inflation which is hitting the common man.
Right. Let's bring in our expert Swami in here as well. Swami, what is the scope that the finance minister has as far as tinkering with indirect taxes are concerned? There is some amount of expectation. Sectors like auto are desperately hoping for some SOPs to come through. What can we expect from Chidambaram?
I think Chidambaram will act on the basis of history. Jaswant Singh in 2000, I mean, if you go back 10 years ago, Jaswant Singh was presenting this last interim budget, last vote on account of the NDA government. And Jaswant Singh went for a series of indirect tax cuts, excise duty tax cuts, on what he thought was required by the ordinary housewife. All this was announced in January. Over and above that, he said, I'm going to have some bank fund for small-scale industry. Somebody said, why not farmers? He said, I'll have another fund for farmers. In other words, Jaswant came out with a number of these SOPs, attempting to fill the jholas of all the voters. And I'm afraid the voters decisively ejected the NDA. It didn't work. I think Chidambaram is fully aware of the fact that trying to fiddle with these things at the last minute does not work. Rather than attempt that, I think his eye is much more firmly on saying, I don't want a situation where there is any credit downgrade. I don't want a situation where there is a downward pressure on the rupee. I mean, emerging market situation is fragile. So I think he'll be more worried about saying, let's not give any problems which result in the rupee crashing, inflation going up. Let us just focus on our track record. We are not going to be able to buy the coming election by giving a few SOPs. So I don't think he will go for that. It is possible some people say that a minor tweak here or there. I suspect Chidambaram will not even do a minor tweak.
Okay. Swami, thank you for that take, but I'm just going to, at this moment, thank Mukesh and Ashok both for joining us. Gentlemen, appreciate your time and thank you for joining us. But before we take a break, let me quickly do a technical check with our experts. And Ashwini, irrespective of today's event, markets are simply doing what they've done for the entire 2014, which is banks are coming down, IT and pharma are outperforming.
Well, that will remain the trade post the event also. Because, I don't think any major changes to sentiment will be made because of this. Maybe one or two sectors where something may come. But overall, the market moves on post this event. So nothing much to come out of this. Meanwhile, certain stocks have restarted rallies post significant correction. So something like Dr. Reddy's is a buy with a stop of 2590, target of 2700. Reliance Communication is a sell with a stop of 124, target of 110, and Motherson Sumi is a buy with a stop of 220, target of 242.
Mitesh, I just want one trading idea from you, valid for next 2 hours, where the upside could be 3 to 4%.
See, I would still, bet possibly on Tata Motors. I think that's a stock which is showing momentum and possibly can give a breakout on the upside. It's come off from the day's high, but at current levels, best levels to buy with a stop at 382 for targets of 400.
Thanks for that, Ashwini, Mitesh. 30 minutes to the budget. We're going to take a short break, but on the other side, we'll put the spotlight on macros. Swami, Maithili, Punita, of course, stay on, and we'll also be joined by Chetan Aiyar and Subir Gokarn. The spotlight on macros on the other side. Keep it with ET Now.